Kings Park has always been a special place for me. It's where I'd go when I was a kid, like my parents would take me, and it's now become a really cool nature playground. I sometimes go back there and train. I really love circus. It's very almost meditative. So whilst I used to go to Kings Park a lot as a kid to play, and sometimes as an adult I go there to do circus, I go there for a very different reason most of the time. I'm Dr. Kit Prendergast, also known as the bee Babette, and I'm a wild bee scientist. I study the native bees and I discover how many species there are and how we can help conserve them.
Melaleuca in general attracts so many species of native bees. When the Melaleuca's in flower, I always know to go there to find native bees. This bee here is Thyreus warrenensis. It's light blue with black spots. It has a very interesting lifestyle. So rather than forage for nectar and pollen for its offspring, what it does is it finds a nest of a host bee, and the host of this bee is Amygilla, often Amygilla chloroceanea, which is the main blue-banded bee species here in southwest Western Australia. And it will lay its eggs in the nest of the host. And when its baby hatches out, it will eat the host larvae as well as the nectar and pollen provisions that the host put in the nest for its own babies. Now, because these are kleptoparasitic bees and they don't collect nectar and pollen for their own offspring, they go to the Melaleuca for nectar for themselves, for energy. This is a male Megachile monstrosa, and it's monstrously big. The females are even bigger. The thing about some Megachile males is they have expanded foretarsi. This is essentially big forearms. And the reason why they have these is they cover the female's eyes while they're having sex.
Apparently, I always liked bees. When I was a kid, I wrote a little book about some bees. This is when I was 3. Well, my mum did the writing, I did the beautiful illustrations and told her the story. It was about some bees that wanted to have a party. But I never particularly, I guess, thought I would become so passionate about bees. I was a huge horse lover when I was a kid, and I've always had lots of animals, dogs, cats, fish, hermit crabs, axolotls, bunnies, guinea pigs, all types of birds. I think it was year 10 and we were looking at like the development of chicks, and I would spend lunchtime with the chicks, like by myself, like what a weirdo, just with the chicks. I loved biology so much, and I won the award in year 12 for topping biology. After I finished my undergrad degree, I know I wanted to keep on pursuing research. I went to a talk by the WA Naturalist Club, and a gentleman was showing photographs of native bees. I was sort of blown away by how many species there were, and I didn't realize that there were these amazing little creatures literally like in our backyards. And so my interest was really, piqued, and I thought it'd be really interesting to look at the biodiversity of native bees in southwest Western Australia. It's a biodiversity hotspot. We know that it's an incredible place for native flowers. Flowers need bees. Surely there's, a link between the native bees and the flowers here. We can really conserve the vegetation in our cities and design our cities to better support the native bees. But we need to know how to do that. We need to know what flowers they need. We need to know what factors influence how many species there are and how many of those bees there are in particular areas. And I was also thinking about honeybees. They are an introduced species. And so I wanted to look at how honeybees were interacting with the native bees? Were they harming them?
My research shows that, especially in residential gardens where there's not much native plants and flower, honeybees can harm the native bees, and they do that through resource competition. So it's not so much them, say, fighting the native bees. They will find the flowering resources and take the nectar and pollen to such an extent that there's not enough to sustain the native bee populations.
During my PhD, I was collecting native bee specimens in bushland remnants and residential gardens, and then going through every single specimen, looking at it under a microscope, determining what features it had. But there was one particular species that was really distinctive. It was in the genus Leoproctus, and I had only collected it on one plant species, Jacksonia sericea, at a couple of locations. And it had this protrusion on its face, and that's quite unusual for Leoproctus. It's always been a dream to, find a new species and describe one, and I was like, this species, it's very specialized, it's very unique. I, spent a couple of years looking at lots of specimens, looking at the key features, taking photographs, reading other taxonomic papers to look at how you would write a new species description, and then wrote it and submitted it to journals. I called it Leoproctus Zephyr. I named it after my dog, Zephyr, who is a Maremma dog.
There's 1,661 species of native bees that have been described in Australia. There's hundreds more that are undescribed, yet only 4, I believe, are on the federal threatened species list. So that means most of our native bees are not protected.
Unfortunately, taxonomy is not really funded, and it's not really taught, and we really need to invest in this because there's a lot of work to be done, and this is crucial. This is the backbone to so much, and the basic metric biodiversity is how many species there are. But if we don't have people who know how to identify them, if we don't even have the species descriptions, then it's very hard to get a handle on biodiversity and conserve this biodiversity. And biodiversity is just so important to really ecosystems, life. It is life.